Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head to Hong Kong once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that featured on the channel once before. So the last beer that I had from these guys was really quite interesting, a style that I had never heard of before, and one of the really interesting things about this brewery is that they seem to specialise in lager beers. Now the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I very much enjoy, one that's very close to my heart and my getting into craft beer, and it's one that you don't really find all that often actually, and this will definitely be my first Hong Kong brewed version of this style as well. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to go to a little place called Tsing, which is just to the northwest of Kowloon, which is the city across the water from Hong Kong Island, and that means that we're going to have a look at my second beer from HK Lovecraft. So this beer is called Space Rock. It comes in at 5.5% ABV, and this one is a Rauchbier, or a smoked lager in other words. But this beer was bought at HK Brewcraft in Central in Hong Kong, who do a number of really nice beers, by the way, not just from Hong Kong, from all over the world, but this is one that just kind of caught my eye mainly because of the style. And for those of you that have watched the channel for any length of time, you might happen to know that my love of craft beer began by trying the Bamberg Rauchbier. So whenever I see new examples of this style, I'm always very keen to try them. But yeah, let's see what this one has in store for us. First though, a massive shout out to my good friend Luigi of Luigi Drinks. You'll find him on Facebook and Instagram. He does some really nice reviews, lovely guy, and you will of course see him featuring in some upcoming out and about videos. I still need to edit those together, but it was great to meet up with him in Hong Kong and try some of the local beers. So do go and show him some love. I'll put the link to his Instagram and Facebook pages in the video descriptions for you below. But let's crack on with this one then and see what the beer has in store for us. As always with my reviews though, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting however, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from HK Lovecraft before, and we will no doubt add more to some of that to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. Just go to the search bar, put your hometown, state, county, whatever you like in there. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the playlist for Hong Kong, along with a number of other things, and we do have a few other beers to add to that list over the next little while. So keep your eyes peeled for those, and I'm sure we'll return to Hong Kong in the future to get even more. But if you want to stay up to date with the Hong Kong beer scene, like I say, check out my friend Luigi and his channel Luigi Drinks, if you like, in the video description below. But let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a little bit once again about HK Lovecraft. So, HK Lovecraft, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Tsing, which is an island, I guess you could say, and also a village to the northwest of Kowloon in Hong Kong, and this company was founded by Perry Lam. I think it was 2017 they were founded in actually. But Perry studied brewing at the Siebel Institute in Chicago and also at the Domens Institute in Munich in Germany, where he completed the Master Brewing Program, and this actually made him the first officially certified Master Brewer in Hong Kong. But the brewery is equipped with a 2,000 litre Braucon kit from Germany and focuses on the brewing of lagers, and Perry constructed the brewery with his own money, and they released their first beers in the summer of 2018. But over the years, Perry has continued to develop new recipes, and his beers have actually won a number of awards. So the brewery's name is a play on H.P. Lovecraft, the American author, and he was instrumental in the cosmic horror genre. And it is said that the Lovecraftian genre centres around the fear of the unknown, and the idea behind the name is that craft beer is not known to many, and this is reflected also in the artwork that you'll find on H.K. Lovecraft labels. And of course Perry is just a huge fan of H.P. Lovecraft's work, so he wanted to kind of use that for the name of his brewery as well. But as of June 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 45 different kinds of beer. Like I said to you, they do specialise in lager brewing. We will need to try some of their more kind of normal lager beers, if we can call them that. They do have a kind of Helles beer and a Dunklo and all these kind of things, but like I said, this is the one that just kind of caught my eye when I saw it. But yeah, they will no doubt add more to that list in the future. But yeah, very cool to find a brewery in Asia that is specialising in craft lagers already. So that's really quite cool, because the craft beer scene, to some extent, it is really quite developed. Some breweries are very, very good, but it is still kind of developing and going, actually. But this is the first brewery I can think of in my from my travels in Asia that specialises in lagers. I don't think there's any of them in Japan quite yet that are doing that. None that I know of in South Korea, none in Taiwan. And this is the only one I can think of in Hong Kong that does it as well. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about HK Lovecraft for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rauchbier, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then and see what it's all about. Before we open it up, I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. So as you can see, it is pretty cool, I have to say. You can see black top there with a little gold ring pull, so that is a little bit unusual on this one compared to other things we've seen before. The can, incidentally, is a 330ml can. I can't remember what I paid for this one, to be honest with you. It was in Hong Kong dollars, so it kind of went straight over my head, to be quite frank. But yeah, wasn't too expensive. Craft beer in Hong Kong really doesn't cost all that much, actually. And one of the great things about Hong Kong is that you don't have import tax, which is one of the reasons why there have been a number of craft brewers popping up in recent times, because they can import the hops from the US, Europe, Australia, New Zealand very cheaply, and of course you can get German, American and British malt for very cheaply as well. But yeah, I have to say the artwork on this is really very nice, actually. Very kind of black metal or power metal or something like that. It reminds me of the band Empire, I have to say. And I do like the kind of space theme that they have going on in this one too. But it tells you a little bit about the site on the side as well. So it says, all of us, the labourers, the brewers, the tasters, we are keepers of this art. Beer will remain as long as humans last. So yeah, that's quite nice. But let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. As I said earlier, this one is called Space Rock. It's a Rauchbier coming in at 5.5% ABV. Let's do this and see what it's all about. Our first Hong Kong Rauchbier. I think this is only the second one, actually, that I've had from Asia. The other one would be the Rauchbier from Fujizakura Heights, or in fact we've had two smoke beers from them, the Rauchbock and the original Rauchbier. So, yeah, interesting. So, as you can see, this beer is poured pretty much as you would expect from a Rauchbier. So, before the head disappears, we can say that this one is poured with about 1.5 fingers of a frothy, I would say, kind of very light, almost fawn coloured head. Smaller bubbles toward the bottom there, and a few bigger, more airy bubbles up toward the top. I'll just let you have a little look at this one. I think you can see the bubbles clearly there on the camera, but the beer itself does look very, very nice. You can see there's quite a bit of sediment particle just floating around in this one, just kind of suspended in it. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, and a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But overall, it does look very, very nice, actually. Yeah, colour-wise, I would say this one, it's like a kind of unstained mahogany, actually. I think to you guys on the camera, it's appearing quite a little bit darker than it actually is to the naked eye. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker coloured beer. But any banylation you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will, of course, affect the colour of it as well. But when it comes to most types of lagers, you don't often have to care about that. It's only really icebox and things where you might have to care a little bit about the barrel and stuff that it's aged in. But yeah, the colour of Rauch malt is a little bit darker, of course. For those of you that don't know, the Rauchbier as a style originates in Franconia, which is the northern part of the state of Bavaria in Germany. It's got the highest density of breweries per head of population anywhere in the world, and I guess you could probably you could probably say that this beer also originates from the town of Bamberg. The most famous examples, of course, would be Schlenkerla, which is the one that is most widely distributed, but you've also got Spezial in there, and there's also a brewery locally called Weierer, who do a very nice example of a Rauchbier as well. But the way that they make Rauch malt, which is used in these beers, is by drying the malt by burning beechwood, and that's where the smoky flavour comes from. You do get special editions, of course, where they burn oak, such as the Schlenkerla Eiche Doppelbock, which is released at Christmas time. But yeah, for the most part, Rauch malt is made using by burning beech logs to dry the malt, actually. But yeah, looks like a very, very nice. It does look like a very, very nice beer, this one, and it is kind of the same colour as what you'll find from those from Spezial, Schlenkerla and Weierer and things like this. So nothing untoward about the appearance of this beer. It does have a nice little bit of a natural haze to it. The head, as you can see, has faded away to be a thinner foamy layer, and there's a little bit of a thicker ring just around the edge of the glass too. But let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see what it's all about. Nothing else we need to say about the appearance. Yeah, aroma wise, exactly as you would expect. And I can tell you quite safely this is using German, maybe even say it's Weiermann Rauch malt. So Weiermann is a very famous maltery based in the town of Bamberg. The building is very distinctive, a big red building, and it's also a heritage building listed as German Industrial Heritage, actually. And they supply breweries all across the world and brew some of their own beers these days as well. But yeah, this one smells absolutely lovely. Yeah, exactly as you would expect. It's just so nostalgic coming and trying beers like this. I think this one, they just call it a Rauchbier, but I think we technically have to call this beer probably a Märzen or something like that as well. So remember, the Märzen is a German type of lager beer. Lager beers, of course, are defined by being low temperature fermentation beers using bottom fermenting yeast. They'll ferment between 8 to 12 degrees, but the Märzen style is one from Germany, and it tends to be a little bit more kind of brown bready, a little touch of graininess to it, but it's also got a wee bit more of a kind of sweet biscuity character, actually. Different from Bock's, of course, and from the Vienna lagers, and the Czechs also have the Letzak, which is a kind of amberish lager as well. But yeah, the Märzen is quite distinctive, mainly for the fact that it's a bit stronger, actually, as well. But yeah, this one for me has everything you'd want from this style. Let's just break the aroma down though and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of the beer, you absolutely have a little bit of that kind of fresh, kind of wholemeal, brown bready bread crust coming out of this one. It's almost got it smells as if it's got like a little touch of flour or something to it. That's absolutely in there. You get a little bit of woodiness out of this one, which is nice. So yeah, a little touch of woodiness in there. And then you also have a nice little bit of cracker too, so you get quite a little bit of dryness out of this beer, I have to say, that's for sure. Now on top of that, you get quite a little bit of wholemeal brown bread, and for me, the brown bready character is kind of embedded, the smokiness, sorry, is embedded in the brown bready character. So the smokiness for me, it has that typical kind of woody and meaty type character that you expect of the German Rauch malts. For example, back home in Scotland, the smoky character that you would often find there, peaty smoke character, has a little bit more of a kind of grassy and earthy type character to it. So there's lots of different kinds of smokiness that you can talk about in these beers. But yeah, for me, the smokiness, like I say, it's quite meaty. It's got a little bit of kind of brown sugar, sort of Milliard. Is that it or is it Maillard? I forget exactly how to pronounce that word, but the sort of browny stuff that you get when you kind of sear a steak or a bit of pork or something like this, a little bit of that kind of thing going on in this one. So very nice, meaty, smoky character, lovely sort of, there's a lovely sort of, yeah, there's a lovely kind of, just I would say, you just get that nice kind of, it's got a sort of woody character to it, obviously. You get the meatiness, and you also just get a little bit of this kind of Milliardy and a little touch of brown sugar there as well. But all of this is embedded in the kind of wholemeal brown bready character that this beer has. Above that, you do start to get a little touch of a kind of leathery, brown sugary character coming out of the beer. Certainly a little bit of toasty caramel as well, and a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity type note as well. So lots of interesting things coming out of this beer. But for me, as you'll know if you've watched the channel before, I love Rauchbier, so these things really are a treat for me, and I get very excited about them. But yeah, I think, to be honest, that I think that kind of covers. That actually covers everything I think we really need to say about the more malty and yeasty side of this beer in terms of the aroma. So the hoppy side of things, then, that's also what you would expect. There's a good little bit of earthiness coming out of this one, which I think is really nice. So yeah, a little bit of a smooth earthiness there as well. It's almost a little bit wetter. You've got a little touch of herbal character in there, then a little bit of a kind of floral aromaticity, and you've got quite a bit of wet, grassy character coming out of this one too, which I think is very, very nice. So all of that pieces together really quite nicely. So yeah, a little bit of floral aromaticity, a little bit of wet grassiness, and then you've also got that, yeah, as I say, you've also got a little bit of that kind of fruity character coming out of this one. But yeah, the hoppy character in this one is, of course, very reminiscent of noble hops, which I would assume Perry has used in this one. So, you know, you've got your Hallertau and your Tettnanger. Tettnanger, of course, comes from the Baden-Württemberg region, whereas the Hallertau hops come from Bavaria. So probably they'll have used the Hallertau ones in this because the style, of course, originates from Franconia in the north of Bavaria. But yeah, you've got that smooth earthiness in there, the little bit of herbal character, and then the brighter floral aromaticity with a wee bit of, with just a wee bit of a lighter kind of grassy sort of thing coming out of this one as well, but distinctive noble hoppy notes. Let's have a wee look at the fruity side of things then. So for me, the fruity character is kind of interesting because you do get a little hint of a kind of red fruity sharpness out of this one. But of course it takes a bit of a backseat to the other things. You've got a little bit of like raisin or sultana quality in there. Little touch of an oily pear. And then, yeah, maybe could you say like a teeny bit of like very dry apricot or something? It's kind of hard to pick, of course. The dominant factor, the dominant thing in the aroma of this beer is, of course, the Rauch malt. But yeah, the way that this beer really goes together is very, very nice. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. I do like how this one, I do really like how this one pieces together actually. Yeah, gets a big, gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, very nostalgic beer. Really gives me, it really makes me remember back to when I first tried Schlenkerla Rauchbier. So I think we can leave it at that for the aroma of this one, and it's about time to taste this. So yeah, this one is the Space Rock, a Rauchbier coming in at 5.5% ABV from HK Lovecraft in Tsing, just to the northwest of Kowloon in Hong Kong. Let's try this one. Only my third Asian Rauchbier. Slange, Skål, cheers, Gambe. Yeah, I have to say that's pretty nice. And it's pretty authentic as well, actually. It really is kind of close to what you would expect of this style in Bamberg. Actually, one thing I would say about it, if you are a fan of Rauch beers like me, it's not quite on the same level of punchiness that you're going to get from Schlenkerla, but it's not as light either and easygoing as you might find some of the Spezial beers it might be a little bit more kind of in the middle of those two. I'm trying to remember what the Vajra was like. I think this one could be a little bit more like the Vajra Rauchbier, to be honest with you, because I remember the Vajra one had a little bit, it wasn't, you know, saturated almost, I guess you could say, in the same way that the Märzen, that the Schlenkerla Märzen is. But yeah, this one does have a little bit more kind of punchiness and things than the it does have a little bit more punchiness to it for sure than the Spezial one does. But I think this is really nice. One thing I would say about this beer as well is that it's, you know, it's only rated 3.2 on it's only rated as a 3.2 on Untappd, and personally I think that's really unfair for this one. You know, Untappd has a few you know, you can use it as a fairly decent barometer for craft beer, but when it comes to styles like this, it falls down. You know, it's not good for lager beers, and I would say that in terms of authenticity, I think this one is pretty damn good actually. So it deserves, in my mind, a far better rating than 4.2. To be honest with you, I think one of the things that would happen with this beer though is that people just don't get it. If you don't understand this style, you're not going to rate it kind of as highly as it might get from someone who does understand the style. But yeah, it's all about experiencing new things, so don't be scared of trying Rauchbiers. This one actually is quite a nice introduction to the style because it's not too smoky and it's also not too light actually. So that is one of the things. I would always recommend that people start with the Spezial and then move up to the Schlenkerla, to be honest with you, but that's just me. This one certainly is somewhere in the middle of the two, as I said, but I think this is a very nice example of the Rauchbier, so it gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah, and I would say this beer actually comes across as a lot more authentic than the lager wine did, actually. So yeah, the lager wine was interesting, but this beer, I wanted this one to kind of see what their more authentic styles are like, and this shows that HK Lovecraft, they can do their lagers well. But let's break this beer down, as we always do, and describe the flavour a wee bit more in depth. So, yeah, for me, the middle third of your palate then, this is where you get the most complexity out of this beer. The backbone is absolutely a little bit of that kind of, you know, fresh but still dry, brown bready bread crust. You can feel that right away in this one. And it does get drier the further into the aftertaste you go as well, but further forward on that middle third of your palate, you will get a little bit more of a kind of woody dryness in there, and you can almost taste a wee touch of like vanilla from the wood as well. So yeah, you've got that dry kind of slightly toasty, well-fired rye bready bread crust, a little bit of woodiness with a bit of vanilla in there, and then above that you get a wee bit of a, you do get a little bit more of a kind of, you get a little touch of Jacob's cream crackery quality, and then you get a layer of more dense but dry rye bread. So yeah, you get a little bit of a drier smokiness within the rye bread, but then above that you get the lighter and more airy wholemeal brown bread coming out of this one, which I think is also very, very nice. So yeah, within the wholemeal brown bread, you can feel that the smokiness kind of sweetens up a little bit. So yeah, and within the kind of rye bready layer, you've got a more kind of woody type smokiness. But yeah, within the wholemeal bready layer, you start to get the kind of sweeter, more meaty, milliardy character out of this one, which I do quite like. Above the wholemeal brown bready character, yeah, above the kind of wholemeal brown bready character, you get more of you can feel the kind of brown sugary quality. So it's a little bit toasty and brown sugary there. So you get a little bit of the toasty character and a wee bit of the dryness too. And then, yeah, above that, above the toasted brown sugary layer, actually, I'd maybe say that it's more of a kind of leathery brown sugary layer. And then as you reach the edges of that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit more of the toasty brown sugar too. Either that was a toasty layer and then a leathery layer on top. But in the dead centre of that middle third of your palette, you do get a little touch of a straight up caramel in there, but as you move further out from that, it gets a little bit drier and more toasty and things. And as I say, you've got a leathery brown sugary layer underneath that, and a little bit more of a toasty brown sugary layer leaning underneath that one as well. So yeah, that's quite interesting, I have to say. That does go together quite well in this one. So yeah, the middle third of your palette has all of the complexities that you would expect of this style, and like I say, I find this one to be quite authentic actually. But as I said earlier, it's not as punchy and kind of saturating as Schlenkerla is, and it's not quite as light and easy going as the Spezial is. And I remember the Weierer being kind of somewhere in the middle of the two, and this one actually reminds me of the Weierer Rauchbier. So yeah, this goes together really nicely. Gets a thumbs up from me. The other thing I would add is you maybe get a tiny little a little bit of nuttiness out of this one the further into the aftertaste you go. But yeah, I like it. I certainly do like how this goes together. I think we can leave it at that for the middle third of the palette. Then we'll go to the back third of the palette. So border region between middle and back third of the palette. So the border region between middle and back third of your palette, you get a nice little bit of a kind of wholemeal and rye, brown bready build up in there. You can feel it's got a little bit of dryness toward the top, but on the back third of the palette, your flavours are actually quite similar. As I've always said, on the back third of the palette, you'll get the same kind of flavours as you will in the middle third of the palette, but they kind of come out in different intensities. But generally speaking, the further back on the palette you go, the more dry and bitter the flavours are. The further forward you go, the sweeter they are. But yeah, back third of the palette, you've got that same dry, slightly well-fired, bread crusty character in there. On top of that, you've got a nice little bit of Jacob's cream cracker as well, and again, that's a little bit drier. Then you've got the kind of rye bready type layer, which feels a little bit taller and more airy, and you can feel the dryness of the smoke within that is even drier than it was before. And then above that, you get the kind of wholemeal brown bready layer, which again is lighter and more airy than in the middle third of the palette. And you can feel the sort of milliardy, sweet, meaty, smoky character. It just feels a little bit brighter, but again, it's also a little bit drier too. And some of the kind of dry, toasty brown sugars are just creeping on top of all of that into the back third of the palette as well. Above everything else, you do start to get a nice kind of, above everything else, you start to get the nice kind of sweet, you get more of the yeasty notes out of this one. So you get this kind of farmhousey, woody, crackery, brown bready character out of this one, which I think is really, really nice. So yeah, you have this nice kind of brown bready. You have that nice kind of farmhousey, brown bready, crackery, woody sort of thing coming out of this one, which I think is really quite nice actually. And I get a wee touch of honeycomb out of it as well. I always get honeycomb on that back third of the palette for some reason. I just get that mixing in with the kind of more yeasty character of this beer. But yeah, definitely. Back third of the palette, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of squashes down and condenses that a wee bit more. But the malty and yeasty side of this beer, I think, is really nice and very authentic. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palette, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there, which is good. As you move further forward, you've got a little bit of that kind of herbal quality as well, which I do like. But as you move further forward, you can feel a bit of the herbal and earthy character comes with you, but you get a wee bit of a more bright floral aromaticity on the front corners of the palette too. Then round the front curve of the tongue, you get a bit of that lighter, more, you just get a little bit of that lighter and slightly wet, grassy character coming out of the beer, which I think is very, very nice. So that goes together really well in this one, and that gets a thumbs up from me as well. But it's typical German noble hop character, this one. I would be very curious to know exactly what hops have gone into this one, But yeah, it does actually, the herbal and earthy character you get in this one could almost be a little bit English when I think about it. But yeah, hoppy character in this one is kind of what you'd expect, and it adds a wee bit more dryness and bitterness to the beer too. But let's have a wee look at the front third of your palate then, and the kind of fruity part of the beer. So that border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of a bready build up in there, which is nice. So you can feel that coming out of this one. Nice little bit of brown bready character there. Then the base of that front third of your palate, there's the kind of toasty, well-fired bread crust in there, the bit of cracker, then a mix of wholemeal and kind of rye bready character, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy, fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that fruity side of things. So, the fruity side of the beer, in this case, for me, at the back of that, at the back of that front third of your tongue, you get a little touch of a kind of almost like sultana type quality out of this one, like a dry white green grapey note. But as you move further forward, you get a lot of kind of oily pear out of this one. And of course you've got the smokiness from the malt. I think the Rauch malt really shows you a bit of an almost ashy, charred character the further into the aftertaste you go. So I think the fruits take a wee bit of time to show as well. So if you actually concentrate on trying to identify these fruits, you can feel a bit more of the smoky character just pushing its way out. But yeah, sultanas, oily pear. There's maybe a teeny little hint of red fruity character in this one as well. Yeah, there's a teeny little hint of a kind of red fruit, maybe a very, very slight fig or something like that. But yeah, as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, you do get a wee bit more of a, there's almost like a teeny little hint of juicy black currant in there, which is kind of a bit unusual for a Rauchbier. But yeah, for me it's mainly sultana and kind of oily pear, and just a little tiny hint on that front half of the front third of your palate. There's a little teeny bit of like black currant, or you know, a little tiny bit of a figgy note as well. Maybe a little bit of kind of green apple, fresh green apple or something, or maybe a red apple as well on that front third of your palate too. The fruity character in Rauchbiers can be really unusual, if you like, and it's quite hard to describe it. But yeah, for me, oily pear and sort of sultana-y, dry white green grapey notes. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the actual flavour of this beer. It's a really interesting one, and like I said, it's pretty damn authentic. Yeah, so we can round off with a look at the mouthfeel. For me, this beer is kind of top end of light bodied, bottom end of mid bodied. Carbonation is quite smooth. It has a nice little bit of dryness to it, this beer, but also a good little bit of oily character. So yeah, nice wee bit of oiliness coming out of this one, which I think is really good. And yeah, you get the dryness, you get more and more of the dryness the further into the aftertaste that you go. In terms of IBUs and hoppiness in this one, I think this one's got to be about 20 or 25 IBUs, which is kind of standard for the Rauchbier style, but you get a lot of dryness out of this one because of the nature of the malty character, and I don't know whether you can count that as bitterness in this one, but like I say, the malty character has a bit of roastiness to it, you've got a bit of smoothness in the middle and a bit of dryness in there, and also a good little bit of sweeter character as well, which is good. And then on the fruity side of things, you've got a nice, yeah, with the fruity side of things, you really have a nice little bit of kind of sweet, oily character coming out of this one. Yeah, it's mainly a kind of dry and oily fruity note that comes out of this beer for sure. But yeah, I think that's everything that we really need to say about this beer, to be honest with you. I think this is a really nice example of a Rauch beer. The only complaint I can have about this one is that they sell it in 330ml cans. If you're going to be a lager brewery, the one thing I would say is maybe to sell your beers either in the 440s or the half litres. So yeah, I hope that's something that HK Lovecraft would consider in the future, because if they're doing like a Helles or a Dunkel or something like this, I think you should sell the beer in a slightly bigger volume than just 330. Lagers are supposed to be drunk and sessionable, so you need that little bit more volume for me. But yeah, I think if they're only producing on the small scale, then I can certainly understand why they do the beers in the 330s. But yeah, like I said, lovely Rauchbier this one, and I think anyone that does enjoy this style will certainly enjoy this one. But yeah, this is out of the ones I can think of, it's closest to the Vajra for me. But yeah, let's leave it there. This one was the Space Rock, a lovely Rauchbier at 5.5% EBV from HK Lovecraft in Tsing, just to the northwest of Kowloon in Hong Kong. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from HK Lovecraft as well, and we will see about returning to these guys at some point in the near future. But in the meantime, check out my good friend Luigi of Luigi Drinks on Instagram and Facebook. Check out my social media, check out HK Lovecraft's social media, and do let me know some other good Hong Kong beers and some other Rauch beers that I should check out. But until the next time, Sláinte, Skål, cheers, Gambi, and see you soon.